guys know if you didn't. Yeah, it's not that Rapid's a better translator than Tasteless or something like that. Like, they have translators in their ears. Alright, that aside, we finally get into a fresh best of 3. This is the first semifinals, with the other semifinals still waiting for the winner of QB versus Lika, which is a very long best of so far. It's probably evenly matched. It's a TVZ once again in the bottom right. As the pink Terran, she is Andromeda. In the top left, as the orange Zerg, she's Vriska. Has Cat played with your mic? It's not that he's played with it, he rubs up against it when he's sitting on my lap. Hello, everyone. Don't know too much about these play styles, but Andromeda looked very solid. Now, part of that certainly was, okay, she does always SP Scout. Part of that was because Andromeda's opponent was just doing something really weird. You know, 2-base hive is not very common, and as such, she didn't have to really worry about being the one attacked or messing up her build. I mean, that was kind of the ideal scenario. With this does not mean this sounds insulting. It just is and we have these scenarios in pro games as well. But when you don't have anything done to you, and nothing else is happening, it's like you're playing the AI, right? You just get to do your builds, you get to look over at your notebook even, because there's nothing happening on the screen, and you go, oh, right, I need to get my engineering base at 4 minutes. Like, you can do that in a game like what was last played. Not that I think that she was, but the point is, she's not messed up, she's not missing her timings because Lings ran by into her natural once or twice. And, well, the same thing could have maybe been said for the Zerg player. It actually was the case that Andromeda did try to tag her with the Hellions, and it worked out really well. Did do a couple of drops, and it worked out really well. So, I feel like Andromeda is supposed to be tested a little bit more before I can really say that she's looking quite, you know, good in this tournament. Especially because as far as the MMR goes, she's still probably 3rd amongst the players still in here. Maybe 4th, I didn't actually compare the MMRs, these two people, but yeah. I think Vriska's going to be able to test her a little bit more. Unfortunately, there'll be no tests of the early stages of SCV scouting, so it is just about more of the mid-game run-bys, or hopefully some more standard play where you do worry about like actually attacking into a person who has a lot of queens, for instance, or has a decent number of Baneling. We got some cool little Reaper micro. Andromeda was getting a little bit too far ahead of herself, but now, you know, very easily is going to take out the Lings off of creep. Vriska never went for the speed upgrade, and actually that might just be a huge mistake because she does still have drones and gas. We're going to see in kind of like a few seconds here if she adds on a layer Roachhorn Evolution Chamber or something along those lines. But she does have to add on something, otherwise this is just not great macro. That's the best way I can put it. Andromeda seems to like her build order, so Hellions right into the tech lab. Maybe she'll swap off. I guess I shouldn't say that she's doing the same thing quite yet. But last game she just went for the stim and then a medevac. Let's see if she does that again. Vriska does go for the Roachhorn lair and Evolution Chamber. Maybe a little bit later than what you can really do, because you can start that thing at like 3 minutes actually. But I'm getting the idea of what she wants, like how she wants to play. Medevac, no, Liberator first, sorry, okay. So Liberator first, and then Stim should be starting up soon. And Andromeda does not have an idea of what Vriska's doing. She saw the gas being taken, but that, you know, it would have been very different if she saw the gas was beyond 100. And then she would have been a little bit worried about Baneling bust, and would have wanted something scouting the front, because if they're going to go for a Roachhorn and Evolution Chamber, they're almost always going to put it at the front. Yeah, it reveals to your opponent what your plan is, and that might be a bit of a detriment, but it does help you wall off against Hellion run-bys, because one of the things you don't have when you do this build is like any units, and you certainly don't have speed units, because you don't go for speed. But Andromeda wasn't too aggressive early on with her Hellions. She did wait until it was 6, and then after she already killed a decent number of Lings, and then she moved into the drone line. So this game would be different. As she would see first like a couple of queens defending, and then ideally just a few roaches to make sure that nothing silly happens. The third CC is on the way. The Overlord Scout is good. It's going to see an extra barrack, so it doesn't really need to see the stim. Maybe seeing the additional, if there's a reactor or a tech lab here and doesn't see it, barely doesn't see it. We do have a Liberator, however, not being pulled away from, so probably should have only gotten 2 drones, gets 4 instead. But a nice Spore Crawler repositioning. Hellions do look for the natural off to the right side. Well, they were looking for the third base first, and now we're going to realize that something is amiss, and she should figure that it is Roach with an evolution chamber, even though she doesn't see it. People complaining about the translation. Oh no, my earlier story was someone was like, Rapid does a better job translating. I'm like, I can assure you that's not true. Tasteless definitely has better Korean than Rapid, but Rapid is learning Korean. Anyways, some weird barracks positioning once again. It's really not that important. I just find it odd that she uses her barracks like this. 3 barracks, and then not going straight up to the 2 extra, or rather adding the starport onto the reactor. So could do a either 16 marine drop, or she could actually lift the tank. Streamcatcher does have some abusive spots, but it's just less about her being abusive and more about Vriska being abusive. She has been preparing for this attack for some time with a lot of queens that did almost show themselves to Liberator, but I'm not sure if Vriska saw that or was thinking about it like, hey, that was an awful lot of queens. But there's a creep highway going forward with the help of the Overlord creep. And is Andromeda prepared for this? She luckily was already on her way to a tank, which is going to be absolutely huge, and helping to onto the reactor, whatever the factory is building, instead of a tank. This could have been a very different hold. The Liberator gets at least a couple of shots off, so still worried that even though it goes down to the corrosive bio, bunkers do finish. There's a lot of decent production for Andromeda, and she still has a wall to work with as she takes down most of the Ravagers, only at the cost of 5 SCVs. It's not enough damage done by Vriska quite yet, but Andromeda's army supply is looking really, really quite low. But you look at what Vriska has, and it doesn't even look like she has to an army supply. So much for just in those queens. Like that's actually an entire army, even though the army supply looks so like such a big discrepancy. All right then. So Andromeda holds, and all she has to do is keep a clear mind right now, which she certainly is trying to do. She's still working on that tank production, starboard production. She's gonna have decently timed 2-2 upgrades, and third TC will eventually be able to push forward, as she will. I mean, as soon as she has 1-1 with a decent amount of bio, let's say like 16 plus units. She was in combat shields. I still think she'll be able to push forward. She might want to scan to ensure that more Roaches and Ravagers have not joined up. She can still take on this army, but I think she can do so in a relatively well-timed manner. But she is still kind of paranoid of it being continued all in. She would have to scan either one of these bases, and luckily for her, whichever one she scanned would confirm there's a hatchery, thus signaling that Vriska plans on macroing out of this. But there's another problem they don't really talk about quite yet, and that is a creep spread. Initially it was just used to get across the map. There's a scan to see if it's macro game or not. Also see some drones, which is nice. But now there's creep spread to clean up, and it would not be a bad idea for her to temporarily swap off the starport. It's a time where she's not really dropping or doing very much on the map, so this would be a really good time to focus on swapping off for a Raven. But she might not be thinking about it. She might not want to waste time on it. They got a lot of upgrades on the way for Vriska. She's actually going into +1 melee, but not getting speed. I thought she might be going into Link Bathing Hydra, but you need speedlings for that. Like triple checking, because I don't. It might just be a mistake. I'm pretty sure it's a mistake. And it could be a really big one, as she makes like 50 lings and tries to surround an army with it, and is like, wait a second. Andromeda's going to go with the good old scan approach to clearing up creep tumors, but they were placed kind of far apart, so that scan does not catch 2 active ones, and that's a big deal. Drop's a very good idea. Something that you would think Vriska is expecting, but does not have any defense quite yet. The queens are all walking to the left side. The Roaches are still in the middle of the map, but they're really not doing anything, so that's just, something in the future she could remember to pull those back. But queens are going to go down as they're actually almost back home. 2 of them go down. And at this point, Andromeda really needs to focus on getting rid of creep, and I guess by killing queens, you're killing future creep, right? Tunneling Claws is in effect. Andromeda would not have seen the graphical upgrade. She had no eyes in the middle of the map, and this is going to be a huge surprise. You can technically see them if you're paying attention, but it's pretty rare to pay attention. She has no idea this is happening, and Vriska's even splitting up her armies. This is going to be really, really nice. Andromeda's going to be focused entirely on pushing, trying to get her third CC set up, trying to clear up creep still, and then at the most inopportune time, the roaches will pop up. Looks like Andromeda's also a little bit late to that armor, sorry, so that sucks. The tanks, actually, both aren't covered. Only one goes down, but there's the pop-up, and it's going to do a lot of damage. Some damage going on to the drone line as well. I don't know if there was I think there's the medevac drop. But obviously far more SCV damage going down here. Andromeda accidentally unsieged this tank. It's trying to repair it, maybe? Didn't really work out there. Losing 22 SCVs. I mean, at 40, she's not in a terrible spot with mules to recover, and Vriska only being at 58 herself. And her, like, this army is a very good army with decent upgrades. But she needs to clean up the roaches right here, right now, and in fact, she is doing so. No more continued tunneling claws usage, as Vriska was probably worried about defending. She realizes now, maybe, that she did not have speed, but, you know, her army is actually not comprised of many lings. She turned them literally all into banelings, so as long as she had typical hooks, and she does, I guess that's still them having speed. This is going to be a good choice if she can get away with it. If Andromeda can actually get away with all of these units. No, she actually has more that we're reinforcing, and this is really an opportune time. But if she has time to unload, this is a good army to fight with, but she needs those tanks to be sieged. She has to boost once again. The Liberties have to be sieged as well. She's not going to have the boost. One medevac with the tank goes down. She's going to clear up creep on her way back home. She does not want offensive creep to help her opponent out, I guess, when she's the one that's defending. It's not usually supposed to be the case. There she finally sieges up the tanks, but her army's already been stammed quite many times, and actually the tanks are focus firing the rocks! Oh, that did not help at all, and Andromeda is going to lose the battle and the game. Vriska with some really cool play here. Going for the attack and then following up with the tunneling claws. GG. Vriska takes game number 1. But it is a best of 3, and Andromeda was trying to keep her cool. Just a little bit, you know, a little bit caught off guard. Well, really caught off guard by the Roach Warren. The Roach tunneling claws, there we go. And then I think just a little, you know, off-put because of the way the game was going in general. Especially in non-pro games, really, like up to GM even. You really got to pay attention to how much indirect damage the attack does. Because it's so much more often not about the attack killing 30 SCVs as it is about the defender over-defending or just not macroing. Blue shift's going to be the next map. Looks like we do have the other semifinals sets. It's going to be QB versus Osset. Alright, they're both ready to go. Blue shift's gonna be a fun map. It's very straightforward. I guess it's kind of a replace Catalyst. But in its straightforwardness, it is still a, you know, small to medium-sized map, so things can get a little topsy-turvy pretty quickly. Yeah, I don't think the tanks not targeting the rocks would have been a big difference. Just in general, being caught out like she was is already pretty bad, but they would have helped. It's game number 2 in the bottom left as the pink Terran. She is Andromeda. In the top right has the orange Zerg. She is Vriska. And she is up 1 with a cool portrait. Andromeda still repping her bug. I thought maybe Andromeda was like, she was a fan of the series Andromeda, which I never watched. I don't know at all what it's about, but I know it's a thing, and I know it's kind of a nerdy thing, so that's what I'm going off of, guys. But I have no idea. If you're just tuning in and maybe you don't come to this channel very often, hello, welcome. Please press that follow button. I do a lot of StarCraft, but also a lot of other games. And if you're only here for this Banshee tournament, well, still have the follow button because it is every 2 weeks. Generally around the same time, so Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, but with some intentions to kind of change things around so we hit the Australian people as well as people who like maybe work on Saturday, right? So you can usually depend on it, and with me not going anywhere for the next month and a half, it should be a very dependable tournament to watch. There is a matcherino for every single one of these tournaments, but I would ask you to refrain from investing any more into this matcherino for this one. I know that's kind of odd to hear from a tournament organizer, but thanks to the last outpouring of support for the last tournament, we are fully funded for basically a year. Thank you, Quetchy, for the $5. Certainly, if you want to support me directly, donating would be the best bet. Just that reminded me, but thank you very much for the $5. But yeah, like I already, because it's in every other weekend's tournaments, we have 16 weeks paid for, I believe, and then for the week, right, then it's 32, something like 16 or 17 weeks paid for. Point is, it's happening guaranteed for a very long time. When initially I created this, it was just my own money being put into it with the chance of it being supported by other people. Now it's fully supported thanks to a lot of different really generous folks. So if you want to put money into the tournaments, just, you know, maybe do it next time, because the prize pool is capped at 260. It begins at 125, I think, or 120 or something like that, and then it gets capped at 260, so you would still be contributing to the prize pool for the tournament, but then if that's already full, you know, just wait for the next one, would be my suggestion. I don't want to have, you know, $10,000 in my Matcherino account and be flagged with IRS, right? Anyways, it's kind of just covering time here because you do have a bit more of a standard opener. Vriska went for the speed, she's going for the third base, something that Andromeda is not going to be able to confirm. She probably had a strong idea eventually that it was the roach play, but it's really hard because, you know, if you don't get in that main base, if you don't actually get the scout on the front of the wall and see that it's a roach warren, there's about a minute in your mind where you're like, well, no third base. Is it going to be a Baneling bust? And you don't see that speed hasn't finished. So, and then that minute passes, but during that time, you're kind of worried. It's really a lot nicer when you immediately see the roach warren. In this case, you immediately see the third base, you know at least it's going to be a bit more of a macro game, and it could still be a Baneling bust, don't get me wrong. You would have Hellions, it would be more about paying attention to your Hellions, as opposed to, like, building bunkers, right? That was a nice creep denial. Doesn't happen often, but that Reaper was in perfect place. Once again, Sim, relatively fast. We have a single upgrade here, but it's, you know, it's kind of fast. And Vriska could certainly try and go for the Baneling bust. If she gets us around on the Hellions, that's kind of game over. And if she needs to, she could Baneling bust the wall and then try to get us around. It's not going to hit with +1, though. So I'm thinking these Lings are primarily first and foremost for defending against any Hellion run-bys. But, you know, at this point, we know, we've watched 2 games of Andromeda, it's the third one, that she isn't really aggressive with her Hellions until she has 6. And until I think she's walled off. Like, she's very aware of run-bys ruining her day. And I've certainly been there. But I guess that's actually not the case. The Libera's gonna see the Baneling bust. So it's not, again, it's not quite hitting with that +1 melee. But this is really important, and now Andromeda can pay attention to her Hellions, which for a second there she was not. She's trying to target fire the Banelings, which is not a bad idea, but actually, there weren't enough Banelings to pull down a supply depot wall anyways, so it should have been focusing on the Lings, and actually this is going to turn out really well for a pink Terran. Oh, I spoke too soon! Oh my god. Turns are your best friend in this scenario as a Terran player, but what she's also doing is pulling the Lings as far away as possible from the front of the wall. There are now enough Banelings to go ahead and bust down supply depots, but not the backup wall that Andromeda is going for. She had already lifted off the factory, so she needs to have something to buy time, as her production's not very strong, but because she built the wall, she can't build the Hellions to the newly produced reactor on the factory, and it's still going to be a potentially tough hold, but Vriska might not go for it. She doesn't have a lot of Lings to supplement the Banelings anymore, and she sees that it's a double wall, so she might as well not go for it. Andromeda, I think, would actually, the best thing she could do right now is stall. That is cancel building, but not the actual building. And then if the attack does not occur, she can cancel building she doesn't really need. Right now, anyways. She's gonna go ahead and let that finish. actually is still kind of well timed what she would want for the additional barracks anyways. It's just that she doesn't have the production set up. So in a way, the wall is fine. Like, it was 2 engineering bays that she needed, a 4th barracks, which was a little bit fast because she doesn't have a... It's usually 1, 3, and then 5, which she's now adding on, but this actually is not a worthless wall. As funny as that is, you can just lift the barracks and add a reactor to it. So that worked out really well. It's certainly a scary situation when you've already lifted the factory off. This reactor had, like, just finished as a Baneling bust was occurring, and you don't have minerals to continue producing Hellions anyways. That's a very scary situation. But Andromeda was able to hold. Her heart's probably pumping right now, and she should feel very comfortable. Like, this is still a double wall, so if a further Baneling bust happens, she'd be fine. And yeah, her best move right now is to go ahead and do a drop to get eyes on the situation, not just to do some counter damage, but to actually see what's going on. She has no idea if Vriska's following up with a spire.
That's a negatory.
Oops.
Blocked.
Something is a negatory. Or if there's already a 4th base, for instance, which she's going to scout the main right now, and that's only somewhat of the story. We know that it's still only Ling-based play here. Lair is done, but centrifugal hooks with a Hydralisk and not a spire. That's something Andromeda doesn't quite know. Where's the... I hear it. Oh, it was like right on top of the creep tumor. You clear this up, there's always a hope that they won't replant it, and you can maybe get a pesky drop later on. It's gonna double up with a Liberator harassment over to the right side, but there are already queens waiting. However, behind this, Andromeda's able to get a 3rd CC down. Not quite rallied yet, but on the way. Armory's kind of well timed. And she has to re-rally a lot of her barracks. Going a bit fast up to the 8 barracks. Actually, going up again to 9. Which is 1 more than you usually see. And it's a little bit fast, too, because she's not quite saturated on her 3rd base. But in general, that is the point you want to get to. And because she's banking a little bit anyways, she should just use her money. That is 3 engineering bays. So one of these was useless. Oh, well. Drops finally cleaned up. Widowmine does not get that shot off. Creep spread looking okay, but definitely could be better. Looks like the Liberator might have died to the queens. No, it never went in. Second factory on the way, 2-2. As Vriska's only going for the single upgrade first and foremost, she's actually fine with that 2-2 timing, or, well, that's triple upgrades. Y'all with the triple upgrade facilities are freaking me out. Alright, so the upgrades are going to be better for Vriska for a little while. That's a little scary. 4th and 5th base are on the way. She also might want to get a macro hatchery, but if she can keep that 5th base alive, then it is kind of a macro hatchery. Infestation bit is done, and that should be for a hive very shortly. Ling attack to the south does not work out. In fact, it was just caught on rally, so easy peasy clean up there for Andromeda. Not a lot of tank production. That's something that was missing. Yeah, this isn't a reactor. The factory was on a reactor for so long. Finally added to a tech lab, but that means she's at 0 tanks. You better have good micro if you're only going to go for bio. A couple of Marauders, though. Maybe soak up some Banelings. You also are wondering how good the opponent's micro is. It could still work out, but, you know, having tanks usually makes you feel a lot safer. Hive is finally on the way, along with 2-2 immediately starting after 1-1. Paying well attention to that. No opportunity for Vriska to use her upgrade advantage. As tiny as it is, just, you know, the Lings are a bit better upgraded. As no attacks really underway, this double drop hits the 5th base, takes it out, and she should be able to get out of there. No problem. Yeah, no problem. Speed isn't down on these Hydras anyways. Oh no, she went the wrong way! Stop! Thought maybe she could sneak her way into the dead zone, but thought twice. Baneling bus happens to the south, but there was a wall, there was units, and that does not work out that well for our orange Zerg, but they both are banking quite a bit, so as long as they can replenish, and she just have 18 larvae, there we go down to 8. That's not the worst thing in the world there. She still has a lot of queens. She's up to 10 queens, so gonna have to tisk Vriska a little bit for not, you know, continuing her creep spread, especially up to the top side where she's trying to expand. When you're trying to expand somewhere, that's generally where you want to focus your creep spread, or if you know this is gonna be the main attack path, and this is gonna be the main attack path. The way that they expanded towards each other, Andromeda should be using it. And yeah, now Vriska's trying to push that creep spread, but it's not the most impressive. It is decent. 3-3 now starts for Andromeda. She's, you know, really, she's calmed down a bit after holding that Baneling bust, so the production's really starting to get tight here. So macro seems to be one of her strongest suits. Those medivacs are so low. But she saw the entire army, queens included, over to the top side, so she knows this is free pickings. Gonna grab a creep spreading queen, a couple more creep tumors, and gonna just be able to run away as the army is very slow behind. In fact, a lot of the army is chasing down the 2 medivacs that are actually just hidden. Decent amount of dead space on blue shift. Andromeda expanding towards her opponent. In this position, it's totally fine and even suggested thing to do. But it's not quite done, and that would have been a lovely planetary. Scan reveals that it's still a decent army. And it feels like maybe the tank count has never got very high at all, despite having 2 tanks. Her army supply is really quite good, but this is the problem here. I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know 2 medivacs are out doing not much. They're gonna drop in the main, but that just does not seem like an entire 120 army supply, and it's because so much of it is being misrallied. She's probably rallying to something that died, or just simply has not caught the incorrect rally for some time. But oh, this is huge. She actually gets into the main base, entirely into the main base, and goes straight for the Ultra's Cavern. She saw it wiggly jiggly, and she knew she could get the chitinous plating. Gonna go for the infestation pit as well, so no fungals to support non-chitinous plating ultras, and perhaps maybe later she can get that hive and really set Vriska back on that tech. But Engage is gonna go down here. It is off of creep though, so not suggested for Vriska to continue. She agrees and tries to pull back, but the entire Terran army is on her tail. And that's going to be a lot of gas units lost. She actually tries to turn around, hoping Andromeda wasn't paying attention. And for a split second, Andromeda was not. It's still a good situation there for Andromeda. She's got a 4th base up, turning into a planetary hopefully soon. She's finally on top of that production once again on the factories and starports. Actually adding another starport, realizing that snipe on the Ultra's Cavern was temporary. But these 5 Ultras are not going to look that scary, guys. There's not a lot of Ling Baneling support either, so this is going to be maybe a numbers game when it comes down to it. A little bit of micro is going to be all she needs. Taking the high ground is destroyed, however, and with not a lot of medevac support, it looks like Andromeda, with a very heavily stemmed army, is going to choose to pull away, which I think is the wise choice. An army that is pure Hydra Ultra is an army that you can infinitely kite against. So that could have been a golden opportunity. Instead, a little too overstayed, a little too hurt. Especially because her upgrades are 3-3. But there were Lings on the way. I think Vriska's, most Zergs are well aware. There was like an entire year where Ultras were just so good and Zergs were like, well, if I make Ultras, I win, right? And they started to get kite down by Bjorn, you know? Like I know everyone remembers Bjorn. It's not like he's dead and gone, right? But really what they don't remember a lot of times is how impactful he was to the beginning of Legacy of the Void when it was still being figured out. But that is a well-upgraded Ling run by. They do have adrenal glands and 3-2, so the planetary just went down super quickly. Not fast enough on the pool. It's going to be able to lift the rest of the buildings, and that's kind of the blessing in disguise for not having a planetary. But that was a pretty important 4th base. This 5th is now her new 4th, and now she realizes that Lings do have those adrenal glands. She's not going to lift the command center. It's going to be 2 command centers down! Oh no, she was paying attention to her army, or the continued Lings, I guess, and not to her actual command center. You know, Andromeda was not playing a bad game whatsoever. She was in control of the map. But Vriska, with one single Ling run by, manages to really snap back and even things out. 2 less command centers, 1 less orbital, so less scans for positioning to clean up creep spread, and of course less mules to recover from any SCV deficit. Pretty well matched though, right? Andromeda has lost all of her bank. Vriska has just continued her bank. A scan goes down, trying to read her situation. How far behind am I after losing those bases? She's going to go ahead and try and expand again on location. That's really not going to work out, though. Andromeda would have been actually really... It would have been a great idea for Andromeda, and I know hindsight 2020, it would have been a great idea for her to go for some center towers once she started to spread herself out. But no cancel on the base. SCV is continuing to mine. Vriska is forcing Andromeda into a bit of an all-in situation. But Andromeda is not going to take it. She's going to pull back and try and take care of the army. It is off of creep, but chitinous plating is done now. Those Ultras, they are looking quite powerful. They're not supported terribly well by Lings, but there wasn't kiting for a second there. Banelings are actually still colliding into the very hefty Marauders, but still doing that splash damage. This is not a planetary, and she desperately needs to save it, so the repair is going down a little preemptively. Liberator's going to try and help out here, but the lack of air support in general is hurting Andromeda, so there's not a lot of medevacs, and there's still not a lot of Liberators. Andromeda does take that fight, but it might be a losing war as she dips down below 120 overall supply. Vriska just simply remaxes, and now that she has very larva, not intensive units like Ultras, she can remax instantly. Chooses to go for Lings, which, not a bad idea. You rely too much on Ultras, that's when the majority Marauder army does start taking you down. These Marauders are actually so injured, they do not take the hatchery. If they were full health, that hatchery is dead, and she probably leaves with quite a few of them. Instead, they all die. Vriska's absolutely taking control of this game, and Andromeda is losing out. I think this might be it. This would be the first time I think Vriska advances to the finals if she's able to beat Andromeda here, which is looking very, very likely. Andromeda's finally getting her feet back under her with the planetary and a 4th base, but still no center tower, and still not a terribly ideal army against what Vriska's making. Again, if it was only Ultras, then the kiting would work out, but when it's Ling, Baneling, Ultra, Hydra, you do want, you know, Liberators, you want tanks, like at least 5 to really help you out here, and the 2 tanks are trying. It's not enough. And then there is the possibility of Ghosts if things were a lot different, but that is going to be the final fight. GG, well played. Vriska takes game number 3 in a pretty action-packed series, or game number 2, sorry. In a pretty action-packed series. And that's, we'll send her to the finals, where she will face the winner of QB versus Ulsit. The next semifinals would be on here. I do believe they're both European as well.